Welcome to Read Your Comics. I'm in week 8 of the Age of Apocalypse. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Daryl. I'm the host of Read Your Comics. I am doing a 30-year retrospective of the Age of Apocalypse, 1 week at a time. 30 years ago, these are the books that came out this particular week, and it's Fabian Nicieza week again. Both of these are written by the man. As we wrap up the second month of the Age of Apocalypse, let's look at Gambit and the X-Ternals first. But before I do that, I just want to give a quick shout out to all the viewers' support. All your likes, comments, and shares are appreciated. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. I'll put it right here. And go ahead and like the video too. Do that now so you don't forget. You'll watch a video, you'll forget to like it, it'll autoplay the next one, and then, you didn't like it. Go ahead and get that out of the way, and let's look at Gambit and the X-Ternals. Digging this cover, we're getting the Shi'ar Imperial Guard in this issue, so bringing an element of X-Men that kind of opens some questions about what is the state of the universe without certain X-Men events happening. Fang here is looking a little bit too saber-toothy, though. That's going to be my only complaint, because that costume it's this mane right here, that Fang costume that Wolverine wore for like an issue, doesn't really work on this one so much. But let's dive in here. I didn't catch it immediately, and I probably didn't know it at the time because I don't know that I'd read those issues back in the day. But this is the opening to X-Men 107, where the X-Men team visit the Shi'ar and the M'Kraan Crystal. And not only does it do that homage, it also does the opening 2-page spread. Now, the original one would have the M'Kraan Crystal, like gigantic up here in the background, but it was the same kind of setup with the X-Men versus the Imperial Guard. Good nod to a classic story that I'm sure I didn't catch it at the time because I don't think I'd actually read those issues when this came out. But now it's glaringly obvious to me when I see it. So we're meeting Gambit and his team of X-Ternals again. In the last issue, they got flung through a space-time portal that Leela Cheney, of all people, was able to open up with a little help from some technology. And it puts them on this planet, which is, it's not the Shi'ar homeworld or anything, but it puts them on this planet that the Imperial Guard is on, and they're going to have a conflict. And so a lot of this is them just trying to kind of escape from the Royal Guard. We had Richter, who jumped into the portal too. Look at that teeny tiny little waist he's got going on. This is Tony Daniel art, by the way. I don't know if I already said that. And it's got like 3 inkers working on it. So I always find it odd when there's more than one inker on a book. To me, that always says like there was some kind of a time crunch to get the issue out. Anyway, they're pretty much just trying to figure out where they are, what's going on. The Imperial Guard's kind of thinking the same thing, like where did they come from? Of course, they're not going to get along in the initial heat of the moment here. And they have, kind of a little bit of a throwdown, right? Now, most of the Imperial Guard don't really have too much of a redesign going on. I feel like they just flipped Gladiator's colors. Because on the cover, he has like the blue shoulders and the red torso, which is what I think he usually is. But here it's like flipped. It doesn't really make sense that those characters would have redesigns, I don't think, because they weren't affected by Apocalypse himself. However, the X-Men did go on an adventure to save the universe and the M'Kraan Crystal from Daken and saving Lilandra and so forth. And, Phoenix goes into the crystal and saves the universe, essentially. That didn't happen. So what changed in the Shi'ar Empire that the universe didn't die, a few years earlier? I think that's the big question that it's leaving behind. But the Imperial Guard, they don't really have major redesigns going on. This may just be kind of artist interpretation, and it wouldn't make sense that they had a redesign. Cool use of Sunspot's powers here. He's able to sap off the energy of this character who has some solar powers. There's a lot of quipping here by Jubilee. You get Gladiator getting ready to smash Strong Guy with, a giant boulder. And you get some pretty cool fight scenes going on here that are entertaining. And Strong Guy hits him so hard that it, I guess, sends him kind of up into orbit, although I don't think it's demonstrated as well here as it is in his dialogue. There's some clunkiness going on here where Nicieza starts trying to do the recap of who the characters are and their power set and stuff, and they do it by like verbalizing it, which even in the mid-90s, that was kind of not being done quite as often or flagrantly as, the Jim Shooter era. But that gave Strong Guy's punch of Gladiator, gave them the opportunity to kind of escape, although there were other Imperial Guard around, so I don't know how they were able to escape because they stopped like 2 guys. And that, I think, is going to be one of the clunky aspects of this issue, that some of these transitions about how these characters are getting from A to B is not very clear. So they get down into this like vegetated area of the planet, and the vines start attacking them. And then it cuts to this guy who's over here with the Imperial Guard, but because he's green and has these like, well, I guess they're like dreadlocks coming off of him, but they look like plant vines. That page turn I thought was kind of confusing to determine what exactly the difference is here. And yeah, he's stomping down right there where that same plant is. So I guess the plant vines grabbed him and carried him away, and so when the guard catches up, they're gone and they escaped. But again, like I said, that it felt clunky when I just read it before making the video here, and it makes a little more sense now. I guess that's how they kind of were able to escape down into the vines and get away from some of the Imperial Guard, which Gladiator's back and he's mad about it. Then they mention that they still have Richter over here who is following them, and he wants to make a deal with them, which they haven't done yet. They're just saying that we got this guy. So here's our X-Ternals team, Gambit and crew, and it looks like maybe this is going to be Lilandra, and that the plants are sentient and so forth. And I guess this is Leela Cheney, and she's saying this planet called to me to come to this planet for some reason. Here, Richter is making his deal with them he has a tracking device on one of the X-Ternals, and he says he can find them. Oh, I guess we should look at this blink right here. So the blinking is something that did happen in that original X-Men story too, with the M'Kraan crystal kind of blinking existence out periodically, like almost like the universe was glitching. Gladiator's just going to threaten Richter here and basically say, you're going to help us and you'll be allowed to live. Richter says, no, I want to be able to take the X-Ternals back to my Emperor after we catch him. And he gets him to agree because his tracking device, he says that his vibrational powers can destroy it, and then they won't even find it. Because they're saying the Imperial Guard here is almost scared of D'Ken and what he can do, because he has the M'Kraan crystal, and apparently he's treating it almost like the Infinity Gauntlet. So here we meet Jonath, and he kind of explains what happened in the Shi'ar Empire without the X-Men ever interfering. Essentially, D'Ken killed Lilandra, usurped Deathbird to the throne, and got the M'Kraan crystal and is using it just how he wants to use it. It's all explained here in the exposition. So pretty quick. So this is the crystal that they've come to steal, and they're kind of confused, still kind of confused on how they're supposed to get to it, because it's not even on this planet. And as they're getting the information dump, now the Imperial Guard with Richter has shown back up. So one question we're going to have is, who is this tracking device attached to? Who did he put it on that is keeping track of the X-Ternals? We're going to get another throwdown, and the blinking starts happening a little bit more rapidly. And then you see the crystal stuff that we saw at the end of Legion Quest that took over the whole universe. Now we're seeing it here too, out in the outskirts of the universe once again. And they're there to witness it, and as the crystal is like kind of taking them over, they get like transported once again, and they meet the current version of the Starjammers, who is basically the same group, except now, instead of Corsair, we have Deathbird. And she says the crystal must have wanted you to see that planet die the way it did. There's like a reason for everything you're doing. and we're here to help you go get the crystal and accomplish your mission because, comic booky prophecy stuff that needs to happen that they just kind of know needs to happen. This page makes no sense. Remy's just kind of listening to what she's saying, and for some reason he smashes something in the spaceship, but his dialogue doesn't match this pose at all. Pretty well drawn and everything, but he's pretty much just saying all right, team, let's go get this done. And it just doesn't really make sense with the picture. This feels like it was a page drawn so that Tony Daniel had something to sell at the conventions. Anyway, next issue, Inside the M'Kraan. So I wanted to wrap up with the Amazing X-Men because I think that's the structure that they really wanted you to do. They want you to start the month with Astonishing X-Men and end the month with Amazing X-Men. Those are kind of the two linchpin titles, I would say. They're the ones that are kind of building up towards the big confrontation with Apocalypse as we move along through the event. So that's kind of why I decided to look at this one second. Cool cover by Adam Kubert, it's Andy Kubert. I like this cover quite a bit, actually. We get this new character, Abyss, who looks like he's made out of ribbon almost. And he's not stretchy in the sense of Mr. Fantastic stretchy. I mean, it's these, ribbony tendrils of himself. Opening scene is Abyss in the shadows, and he's tormenting a child. And of course, we're going to get a sideways layout right off the bat. We get to see Abyss and all his ribbony goodness here as he's taking this child inside him into the abyss. And Abyss, his dialogue in this, he's a little too jokey, and I feel like he references pop culture a little too much for the world that we're living. It doesn't fit in this apocalyptic world where, pop culture would just pretty much be dead. All there would be is survival. So I don't think Abyss's dialogue works great. He's supposed to come off as kind of ruthless and cavalier at the same time. And while that definitely does come across, I just don't think his pop culture references and stuff really work in this world. So last we left off, this Brotherhood of Mutants team had reprogrammed these Sentinels that came from Europe to rescue a bunch of humans, a bunch of refugee humans. And now the Sentinels are getting ready to attack the X-Men. We get Exodus kind of blasting at them. Although the Sentinels aren't really doing anything right here, it seems. We do get two of the characters. Yeah, right here in this scene, it says, Sister Vanessa, Brother Madison, you know what you must do. Go now, hurry, and may Apocalypse bless your mission. So these are the two characters that are going to go get lost in the human crowd that we already saw at the beginning of the month when we did Weapon X #2. And that's kind of what we're getting here, is these two escaping so that they can pop up there. I said before I wasn't sure how I felt about this issue coming out so late in the month when that one came out before. I guess this happens early enough in the issue that maybe it's not that big of a deal. This happens so early in the issue that maybe it's not that big of a deal. But we still know that these Sentinels are going to escape, right? That this Brotherhood is not going to stop them. And as Quicksilver goes into the crowd trying to stop him, he pulls down the hood of Vanessa, but it reveals his sister, Wanda, who died in X-Men Chronicles #1. It stuns him enough for this other character to kind of, knock him out. And Dazzler steps in, and I really like Dazzler's look in this, even though she's got that goofy 90s headgear going. Good pose. I like the stunned crowd behind her. Nice composition. But now the Sentinels are going to attack and allow those two to slip off. It was Vanessa, and she has metamorph capabilities. So now Quicksilver and Dazzler have been knocked out. Exodus comes to help them. Quicksilver, who is the team leader, by the way, says to go stop the Brotherhood, and he's like, no, I'm helping take care of you. As the Sentinels are bearing down to attack him again, Storm finally gets a moment to shine. She finally gets some dialogue. I feel like Storm has been unrepresented in this Age of Apocalypse thus far, but she gets some moments in this particular issue. So she uses her like lightning powers to like, I guess, send kind of like an electrical pulse to pause the Sentinels for a moment. Look at this shot of Banshee. Now, Banshee's mouth should be open because he should be screaming. So Banshee's going to track down Maudry, the kind of like monks of Apocalypse. And then this is all him kind of saying he was in retirement and Magneto called him back. How do you retire in this world? I can't imagine that that's even possible. And he meets Abyss, and this is the first encounter with Abyss. As we're going through here, we learn that Abyss is a new Horseman of Apocalypse. I don't know what character he is supposed to be before, or if he's completely new. Because a lot of times when Apocalypse turns a character into one of his horsemen, their power set changes a little bit. So I don't know who this Abyss character may have been in the X-Men proper world. Some great imagery here, though, of him. I mean, these lines and stuff that he creates with his power are pretty neat. I think he's hollow in a way. And so when he opens up, you see that there's a child in there. And Banshee's like, you have a child inside you. Mother of mercy. And Abyss says, I don't really want you. I want the son of Magneto. Go get him. So Banshee does. He returns. This outfit that Banshee wears, the thing he used to have that was like the kind of wings, I always thought those were like picking up the sonic vibrations to keep him aloft. So these, I don't know, just straps of fabric coming off of him don't really make sense to me. They look like Mr. Sinister's like cape that he wears. Anyhow, that's a nitpick. I think he looks neat, but I guess it doesn't work with how I always assumed his power set works. Iceman is back. In the last issue, we saw him get blown up, but now he's back. He kind of reconstituted himself from the water molecules in the air. This is a good Kubert shot right here. This is something I think they're good at, is these kind of underlit faces. Interesting panel here. This is Banshee's hand pointing in the direction that he met Abyss. But you have these things coming off of his arm, like these things, kind of framing Quicksilver and Storm here, which is I guess an interesting way to break up the panel, but it's too similar to what Abyss is. Storm is basically just saying she's going with him and doesn't really give him a chance. And the way their body language is to me, it suggests that they have something going on. It's never really explicitly said, at least in this issue, but that's the feeling that you get from just the way they kind of interact with each other. I like these boots of Storm. They're kind of like the boots of her original costume, except white instead of black. So nice little nod to, Storm's original look. They also mentioned that Storm's little trick with the Sentinels gave the rest of the team enough time to reprogram them and put them back on track to save the humans by basically creating a loop of priorities with the saving the humans first, because that took priority over everything. They were willing to work with the X-Men to help get the refugees aboard. So they go take on Abyss. They find the child, and the child is like catatonic. I like the frip, 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 frip. It's not just ribbony, but it also has that sound to it. Cool look at him here as he can kind of make himself large, because he stretches his ribbony body out. And you see this frip sound all over the page, like all across the page. And this is where his dialogue, like he makes a reference to like Juicy Fruit, the gum and stuff, and essentially equates like the child as emotional stuff. So he has some kind of psychic power as well, that he feeds off of the fear and emotions and anger from these people that he puts inside his body. So him and Quicksilver essentially have a throwdown going on here, and Quicksilver's able to kind of trick him by pummeling his head into his own abyss body, which causes his own power to suck him up into this hole. Now, these word balloon or these narration boxes are poorly placed above what's happening here. So you got to stop and pause to see that there's like this portal right here that he's being sucked into. Otherwise, it just feels like he's off the panel up here. Storm is like, how did you know that would work? And he says, I just got lucky, and was just like basically so mad that he says that he doesn't really ever cut loose in this world. He's very restrained, which is the opposite of Pietro in the regular universe. He let himself go and was basically just punching him so much that he put his face into his own like black hole of himself, and it just happened to work. He said he got lucky. So now we see them loading up the refugees onto the Sentinels. Now see here they have some like escape pods they're getting into, whereas we saw them in the Weapon X book, they were just like people were just like hanging on to the Sentinels. So you think the Kubert brothers would have been on the same page for that. They take off, mission accomplished. So I thought that 4 issues of this may be just them trying to save these refugees, and that would kind of be what the series consisted of. But here we are 2 issues in, and they've accomplished that mission. I like this panel too. It stood out to me when I was looking at it. This is Sebastian Shaw, who's working with Apocalypse. To me, this feels very much like a Kubert angle too. I feel like this is something that both of them like to draw from this kind of lower angle looking up a lot of times. And then we see Apocalypse, and we get the big cliffhanger of Apocalypse versus Magneto, Nuff said. And we're just going into month 3. This is a 4-month event, and we're already being told Apocalypse versus Magneto is coming up. So pretty good build-up. I think at the end of month 2, quite a bit happened. There wasn't a lot of drag. I feel like every title had its own little bit of progression that is keeping you engaged, and also in some ways can kind of feel like not standalone exactly, but each issue you felt like you got like a nice complete story for that issue, or a complete chapter, which, as we all know from more modern events, you don't really get that as much anymore. So that's it for week 8. I'll be back next week. We'll be starting the 3rd month. We are halfway through the Age of Apocalypse now. We'll be starting the 3rd month next week. Until then, read your comics. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed my breakdown of this issue, you can support the channel by hitting subscribe. It costs you nothing and helps other comic fans find the channel. You can also visit readyourcomics.com for cool merch, like this. Read Your Comics isn't just a brand, it's a mantra. And when you wear a Read Your Comics shirt, you are helping spread the word. For more classic comics conversation, be sure to follow me on Instagram at read.your.comics. And if you're still here, why not watch one of my older videos? Here or here.